I'm 100 years old, and I'm not afraid to say something most people don't want to hear. I'm ready to die. Now don't you go making that sad face at me. People hear a sentence like that, and they think something must be wrong. They think I must be miserable, or lonely, or giving up. But that's not it at all. It's more like when you've been sitting at a long dinner table for hours and hours. Everybody's eaten their fill. The plates are empty. The candles are burned down low. And eventually, someone pushes their chair back and says, "Well, I think I'm done now." That's how it feels. My name is Margaret Whitaker, and I was born in 1924 in a small town outside Des Moines, Iowa. Back then, the roads were mostly dirt, and the winters were so cold, the windows would frost up inside the house. My daddy worked at a grain mill, and my mama kept 5 children fed on a budget so tight it squeaked. We didn't have much, but I'll tell you something. We had life, real life. The kind where kids ran barefoot in the yard until the streetlights came on. The kind where neighbors showed up with casseroles when someone got sick. The kind where a letter in the mailbox could make your whole week. I lived through the Great Depression, though I was too little to understand it then. I remember my mama stretching soup with water and potatoes and saying, "We're blessed just to have something warm." I lived through World War II, too. I remember the day my brother Henry left for Europe. Mama stood on the porch trying to be brave, waving that little handkerchief like everything was going to be fine. He never came home. That was the first time I learned something about life, something you don't really understand when you're young. Nothing is guaranteed. Not tomorrow, not the people you love, not even the time you think you have. But life keeps moving anyway. I met my husband Robert in 1947 at a church picnic. He had this crooked smile and the kind of laugh that made other people start laughing even if they didn't know the joke. Tall man, broad shoulders, hands that looked like they'd built half the world. We were married 6 months later. Back then, people didn't spend years deciding. You met someone, you felt something, you jumped. And somehow, most of the time, it worked. Robert and I had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. We raised them in a small white house with a big maple tree out front. That tree is probably taller than the house now. I spent years cooking dinners, folding laundry, wiping scraped knees, helping with homework, and listening to teenage heartbreaks that felt like the end of the world to them. Those years were loud, full, messy, sometimes exhausting. But looking back now, those were the richest years of my life. Because a full house, even a chaotic one, means life is happening all around you. Now here's something people don't talk about much. Time moves faster the older you get. When you're 20, a year feels like forever. When you're 50, it starts slipping by a little quicker. But when you're 90, when you're 100, goodness, it feels like someone put the whole calendar on fast forward. Robert passed away 22 years ago. Heart gave out one quiet morning. We'd been married 54 years. You know what the strangest part of losing someone is? It's not the big moments, it's the little ones. Pouring coffee and realizing you only need one cup. Rolling over in bed and seeing empty space where someone used to sleep. Hearing a joke and turning to tell them, only to remember they're not there anymore. People say time heals that kind of thing. Maybe it does. But the truth is, it just changes shape. The sadness softens, but the silence grows. My children moved away over the years. That's the way life goes. One son in Arizona, one in Minnesota. My daughter up in Washington State with her own grandchildren running around her kitchen. They call, they visit when they can, but life pulls people in different directions. So eventually, if you live long enough, you find yourself sitting in a very quiet house. And that's when you start thinking. You think about all the years behind you, all the faces you remember that nobody else does anymore. Friends from high school, neighbors who used to borrow sugar, the lady who ran the corner grocery store. Most of them are gone now. Sometimes it feels like I'm the last person holding their memories, like I'm the final library book nobody checked back in. And that's another reason I'm ready. Not because life was bad, because life was full. I've had birthdays, weddings, babies placed in my arms, road trips across states that felt endless when we were young. I've laughed so hard my stomach hurt. I've cried until I thought my heart might break. I've forgiven people who didn't deserve it, and been forgiven when I didn't deserve it either. I've eaten strawberry pie in the middle of July and danced in the kitchen with a man who loved me. What more could a person ask for? People think being ready to die means you're tired of living, but it's not like that. It's more like finishing a really good book. You reach the last chapter, and you realize the story has been told. And you close the cover with a little smile, because it was good. My body these days, well, it's not the same body that used to chase 3 children through the backyard. My knees creak like old floorboards. My hands shake when I pour tea. Getting out of bed some mornings feels like climbing a small mountain. That's just the truth. The body has its own clock, and mine is winding down. But the funny thing is, my mind feels clearer than ever. When you're young, you spend so much energy worrying about money, about reputation, about whether people like you or whether you're doing life right. You know what happens when you turn 100? You realize most of those worries were nonsense. Nobody remembers the fancy car you drove. Nobody cares about the job title on your office door. What people remember is how you made them feel. Did you show up when it mattered? Did you say, "I love you" enough? Did you forgive people before it was too late? Those are the things that follow you to the end. And I'll tell you something else. Death isn't the monster people imagine. When you've lived long enough, it starts to feel more like an old friend standing patiently at the door, not knocking, just waiting, saying, "Whenever you're ready." And I am ready. Not today, maybe, not tomorrow, but when the time comes, I won't fight it, because I know something a lot of younger folks don't understand yet. Life isn't meant to be clung to forever. It's meant to be lived fully and then released. I've had my turn. I've had a beautiful, complicated, imperfect turn. And somewhere out there, I like to believe Robert is waiting with that crooked smile, probably leaning against a fence somewhere in heaven saying, "Well, Margaret, you took your sweet time." So when the day comes that someone tells you I'm gone, don't feel sorry for me. Don't cry too long. Maybe bake a pie, sit outside, watch the sunset for a minute. Because if you're still here, it means your turn isn't finished yet. You still have chapters left to write, places to go, people to love, mistakes to make, and stories to collect. Take your time. Live it fully. And when you finally reach the last page, I hope you feel exactly the way I do now, peaceful, grateful, and ready to close the book.